Welcome to the Daily Horror Habit Podcast. I'm your host, Jay Krieger, bringing you daily reviews of current and classic horror movies for your twisted pleasure. Be aware that these reviews and discussions may include spoilers. And as always, I hope you enjoy.
Police department, what is your emergency?
I know! Tucker tells me he picked you up on the street coming from the cemetery.
I saw a man that tried to hurt me. Oh, I know I'm already dead.
Nobody's gonna die here tonight.
Videotape all the girls' murders.
We got a crazy person here. We need help. What do you want?
You're dead.
Oh, God, help us.
He's not gonna stop.
What do we do now?
Die.
This week's installment of Tubi Tuesday, in which I highlight a film currently streaming on Tubi TV every Tuesday, takes a look at Robert Greenhall's 2009 gore-fest slasher Laid to Rest. I think when we talk about horror icons, specifically slasher icons, a similar handful come to mind. Jason Voorhees, Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, Leatherface, and the like. Characters whose prolific legacy has allowed them to breach the horror genre entirely and infiltrate general pop culture. But when we think less about the classics and more about modern horror films, which killers come to mind? Sure, there are plenty out there, but the conversation in regards to iconic killers seems to skate by or just barely mention more recent killers from the last decade or so. And just one such killer who should be amongst that list is none other than the chrome-encrusted killer himself, Chrome Skull, a killer who deserves to have more respect put on his name. Laid to Rest begins with a woman, played by Bobby Sue Luther, who suddenly awakens in a casket, suffering from amnesia, and is being pursued by the crazed killer Chrome Skull, played by Nick Princip. From the opening moments of the film, Hall's vision of evil is fully realized. We see Chrome Skull dipping his Chrome Skull mask into some type of solution while he wanders around his torture shop, examining his tools of the trade, and reviewing old flings he's videotaped. And by flings, I of course mean victims. There's a casualness to his movements, completely unperturbed by his sick fascination with mutilation and murder, something the audience learns very quickly, as Chrome Skull casually splits one of his victims' chests in half with a slash of his handy surgical equipment. Then we see him retrieve his mask and don it, a moment that has the gravitas and weight that feels iconic and menacing as hell. Chrome Skull's unique look doesn't begin and end with his mask though, which he wears along with a perfectly tailored black suit. He also fashions a small DV camcorder to his shoulder, ensuring he captures every moment of his hunts, giving him the option to savor his kills at a later time. This gives the slasher villain a voyeurism quality to his demeanor, something that shows he derives overt pleasure from the act of killing, which makes him far more sinister seeming than even some traditional killers, who do so out of instinct or self-defense, but rarely from a place of enjoyment. Speaking of people who enjoy their work, Robert Greenhall's background as a special effects artist is clearly on display with Laid to Rest, resulting in some of the most gnarly kills this side of the slasher genre. Not a single kill feels like a throwaway, as the rage-filled precision of Chrome Skull slicing and dicing with his brass-knuckle daggers leaves a stomach-churning impression. There's gore, and then there's Hall's turning up the carnage to 11 on even the most seemingly straightforward slasher kills, making for a consistently brutal ride. It's just a shame there isn't much backing up this tour de force of gore. And now for a brief intermission. If you've been enjoying this episode of Daily Horror Habit, please take a moment to subscribe to the show on your preferred streaming platform or leave us a review on iTunes. And thank you for your continued support, and I hope you enjoy the remainder of today's horrifying episode. For as strong and seemingly primed for slasher icon status as Chrome Skull is, there's some glaring issues that really stopped his rise to slasher fame before it even really got started. For as strong as the film is an example of Hall's makeup and practical work, it also exposes his limitations as writer and director. The writing and characters as an extension of that is lacking a majority of the time, and that's putting it nicely. Despite Lena Headey of Game of Thrones and Kevin Gage of Heat fame, there's little to no substance to any character. Especially our mystery woman, who spends a great deal of the time embodying the tropes that make her less of a damsel in distress, as she spends a great deal of time frozen in fear or simply failing to communicate anything to others, or the audience for that matter. Couple this with nonsensical actions such as accidentally ripping a phone cord out of the wall, or even the inorganic framework of the film's world. For example, no one has a functioning telephone in this town, or gas in their vehicle, and the closest police station is 100 miles away. They reference the geography of their area as the Holler, but given this film is released in 2009, the landscape of where the film takes place is portrayed as if it was uncharted territory in 1909. It's a shame, because the rough parts of this film, while tolerable for those like myself who can appreciate the film for its gory merits, will surely be a massive hurdle for those easily annoyed by slashers lacking any real narrative substance. Laid to Rest would go on to receive a sequel in 2011 titled Chrome Skull: Laid to Rest 2, which would continue the series' penchant for staggeringly creative and gruesome kills. But since then, the series has laid dormant. If there were one slasher I'd love to see receive a reboot, it'd be old Chrome Skull. Perhaps Hall could lend the reins to a more seasoned filmmaker while still being in charge of the special effects, because the man does gore like few others do, giving Chrome Skull a legacy that should be more widely known. But until the character receives a film with a narrative overhaul, he'll be forever stuck in indie horror purgatory as just another slasher villain, never to earn the crown of icon, no matter how much he might deserve it. So, if you're in the mood for a slasher that pushes the boundaries of practical kills and can stomach some logic and narrative fallacies, Laid to Rest and its sequel are both streaming on Tubi TV and will definitely appease gorehounds out there. And that'll do it for another installment of Daily Horror Habits' ongoing Tubi Tuesday segment. I'll see you guys tomorrow for another Daily Horror movie review, and next Tuesday for another Tubi TV offering. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to Daily Horror Habit on your preferred streaming service, and follow the show on Instagram at Daily Horror Habit and on Twitter at Daily Horror Pod for episode updates. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.